the husband met Elijah the prophet, and Elijah the prophet tells him, listen, I'm giving you a chance now to have one thing that you can ask from God, and I will deliver the message directly. And you have one opportunity. You can't ask for a lot of things. You can ask for one thing and one thing only. Now, this individual obviously did not have children, but he also was very, very poor. And also, in addition to being poor, he had a father who was very old and about to turn blind. And he comes home and he tells his family this great news that he met Elijah the prophet. And Elijah the prophet gave him the opportunity to ask from God one thing and one thing only. And now he's in a big dilemma. What should he ask for? So his wife says, obviously ask for a child. And he felt, but we're going to have a child, but we're in such poverty, it's going to be difficult to raise this child. So we need money too. And his father is telling him, please, my son, if you have this opportunity, ask God that I should not turn blind. I want to be able to see the world and see things. And he's so confused, and the whole night he's awake, and he doesn't know what is he going to ask for. What is he going to ask for?
I know.
But then comes the moment, and Elijah the prophet meets him, and he says, this is your moment. What are you asking for? And he says, I am asking, please tell God, I just want one thing, that my father should be able to see my child in a golden cradle. So that's how you ask for one thing and getting 3 of those requests included. That's called the secret of prayer. Okay, my friends, we are here tonight and we are in a very special parsha. The parsha of the week is Parasha Truma, which comes after Mishpatim. And now we are going into a very new topic, never mentioned before, meeting it at the first time ever. What is the topic? The topic is God wants a home. A home. He wants a place that he can feel comfortable, just like you feel at home. And that home God wants should be built by the people. He doesn't build, he's not ready to make the home by himself. He wants that we, the people, should be the ones constructing that home for him. This is that the parsha begins on chapter 25 in the book of Exodus. Vayedaber Hashem el Moshe leimer, and Hashem spoke to Moshe, saying, Daber el bnei Yisrael, speak to the children of Israel, veyikhu li truma, and have them, and they should take to me a truma. Truma means a contribution, a portion. Me'et kol ish asher yidvenu libo, from any person whose heart inspires them, tikhu et trumati, you shall take my contribution. And then the Torah begins with a list of a number of items that is expected to be donated towards this contribution. The Torah lists 13 items that you can be a part of this major fundraising campaign. Number 1 is gold. Number 2 is silver. Number 3 is copper. And then it goes in with different types of dyed wool, different types of animal skin, a special type of lumber, which is made from a tree called the shittim, the acacia wood. And you can also join with oil. spices, gems and diamonds, and all this is going to be used, as the verse says on verse 8, Ve'asuli migdash, and they should make a sanctuary for me, Ve'shachanti betocham, and I will dwell amongst them. How should you make the migdash? The next verse says, God tells Moshe, I am the architect. I am the designer. How am I going to show you what I want? So he tells them, Kechol asher ani mareh otcha, et tavnit hamishkan, et tavnit kol kelav, vechen ta'asu. You shall make the tabernacle and the design of it. It should be exactly the way I will show you. So God says clearly, I'm going to show you what I want. And later in this Parsha, and in next week's Parsha, and then in the final two portions of this book of Shmot, it brings many details, specific details, and the information about how this tabernacle, this house was meant to be looked, and how the different utensils in that house should be made, organized, where should they be placed, and constantly the order goes in great detail with the statement by the end of each one of the sections that you should do them according the way I showed you in the mountain. God wants a home. Exactly what does it mean for God to want to have a home is obviously a big discussion among the commentaries. Later in Tanakh, in the story of King Solomon building the first sanctuary and the story of the second sanctuary, we see more and more the idea that this home becomes the central location which unites the entire Jewish community throughout their various experiences. Obviously, on holidays, we even have a special mitzvah to come and visit that home to add the three major holidays of Passover, Shavuos, and Sukkot. There were public gatherings there, there were public offerings there. That was the center of Jewish life. It all came around the tabernacle, which is, as God describes it, the place that I dwell. What does it mean, I dwell? God is everywhere. His presence is everywhere. There is nowhere which he cannot be found. But on the same place, at the same time, there is one location which he kind of finds himself in a more revealed manner, which he calls at home. Every person knows that you can go visit different houses, with some of them you are very comfortable to visit, especially if it's your own relatives, family, good friends. And yet, as they say in nice English, home, sweet home. What does home, sweet home mean? I am at home. There is where I am myself, the way I am, the way I am intended to be, with no concealments, with no boundaries. I am who I am as I am. Home, sweet home. So God also is looking for a place where he can be revealed in his essence. And that's what he wants by asking Moshe to ask us to be the contributors, to be the sponsors of this house. And when you read this verse, you get a little kind of uncomfortable maybe. Is God really need to snore? You know, snoring means Does God need to collect, to ask, to beg for people to donate for this cause, to make him at home? He created an entire world. Bereshis, bara Elohim, et hashamayim ve'et haaretz. We read in the beginning of the Chumash, God created an entire world with everything in it. Animals, trees, people, anything. There's nothing missing in the world that he created. A full world up to the minute detail is all in there, ready to be cultivated, ready to be developed, ready to be lived in. And yet, this great contributor called God, who gave and made creation something out of nothing and developed it into this magnificent story of Genesis, Nebach, but Yiddish means Nebach. In Hebrew, they say misken. Misken means unfortunate case who needs to go and tell Moshe, please ask your people to make me a home so I can have a place to dwell. As if to say, I am homeless and I want to stay home. I don't want to be homeless on the streets. I want to be a person in a person. God is not a person. I want to have a place that I can live, a place that I can dwell. I understand he wants to have a place, maybe. I really don't understand. But let's say we're going to figure out what it means for God to have a place and why does he need it. The big question tonight, my dear friends, is why does he need us to make him that house? Why can't it be that somehow, just like he made Bereshit bara Elohim et hashamayim ve'et haaretz, that he created heaven and he created earth, so the same way, God is going to, is going to build himself a house. Very obvious question, a very important question that looking on the Chumash is something which makes us beg for explanation. But before we go into the explanation, let's look back on the first verse and see something very unusual. We all know that in life, there is the life of giving and the life of taking. On an extreme level, there are two opposites completely. Giving means I provide, I'm generous, I have the ability to break out of my ego for my personal, individual character, and to go think that there is something else or somebody else that needs something, and to give them with a full heart. That's the life of giving. On the other extreme is a life of taking. Give me, provide me as much that I have. I'm still not satisfied. I want to take more, and I want to take in order to fill in all my desires, in all my wantings. There's a world of giving. There's a world of taking. Obviously, when we are coming to a person and we tell them, Mr. or Mrs., God wants to build a home. We need your help. What is the proper wording we are going to use introducing that request? Would it be, Reb Moshe, take a donation to yourself? Would that make sense? No. What would we say? Reb Moshe, would you please give a donation to that cause? The word obviously would be given. And yet, take a look on the first line, the opening of this parasha. Vayedaber Hashem el Moshe. I'm reading again the verse, and Hashem spoke to Moshe, speak to the Jewish people, Daber Bnei Israel, ve'ikhu li truma. What is ve'ikhu? And they shall take a contribution for me. What do you mean they shall take? They should give. Ve'itnu li truma. They should give a contribution for my sake. Matter of fact, if we look in the Chumash further, we do have in great detail, it's later in the book of Deuteronomy, the book of Dvarim. So we have in great detail the mitzvah of tzedakah, for example, charity. So it says clearly, Naton titen, you should surely give. Velo yera levavcha betitcha lo. Your heart should not be aggravated when you give. So it's always using the word giving. Not when you take, when you give. This is the normal way of presenting this concept of asking someone to give. So all the commentaries, if you open up any classic commentator on this week's parasha for thousands of years, they all want to understand what is the meaning of taking and not giving. And especially you wonder, where am I taking it to? Giving means I'm taking something out from my domain, from my possession, from my packet, and I'm giving it to the recipient, into his hands, into his packet. Taking means I am taking something from somewhere else, someone else's domain, and I'm taking it in to my domain, to my possession, to my packet. Is this what we're doing? Are we taking or are we giving? The parasha clearly says, "V'yikhu." The interesting thing is that we have a story. And maybe it was long ago, but not so long ago, in the beginning of the winter, we had a story of giving and taking, of Abraham, our forefather, is welcoming 3 guests into his tent. You remember the story, right? Parashat Vayera. They come to his tent, and the Torah tells us something very interesting, that Avram turns to those 3 visitors, and it tells them as follows: Yukachna me'at mayim. Let it be, please, taken some water. Rachatzu raglechem, wash your feet, and then lean by the tree. Ve'ekcha pas lechem, I shall take some bread. V'sa'adu lipchem, and your heart will be satisfied. And you read it in Hebrew, and you translate it literally into English, again, the same question rises. What does it mean, ve'ekcha pas lechem, I shall take some bread? Avram is giving those visitors water, bread, and those visitors are the ones who are taking those items for the purpose of eating. So how should Abraham refer to those guests? Ve'eten lachem pat lechem, I shall give you some bread. Not ve'ekcha, which means I shall take some bread. You're not taking, you're giving. They are the ones who are taking. The receiver takes. The giver gives. So there is the so-called, the classic approach, which many of the commentators share throughout all the generations. This is more like an ethical approach to giving, but this is not what I want to discuss tonight. But just in general, just to share the point in general, which we shared it, I'm sure, in the previous years at some of this parshiot, is what many of our mefarshim, many of our sages tell us, that the Torah is actually looking to introduce to us and to give us the right message about giving. That when you think that you gave someone, you gave up. You separated something that you had and you shared it with someone else. Comes the Torah and tells you, you have it all wrong. Every time you give, you actually take something to yourself. And perhaps the taking to yourself and for yourself is much more valuable than what you gave. The giving becomes a receiving. This is something which is being discussed. Obviously, everybody can imagine in a world, in society in general, especially in a crazy world, when a person is into himself, I need, I fun, I have, it's all about the I. So in such a times and in such a case, when you see people not wanting to get married because they might maybe give up some privacy in their mind at least, and that people are not wanting to give birth to children because it's going to be a life which will demand you to be devoted in raising those children, in providing for those children. People don't want to be so-called losing their personality, their identity. Comes the Torah says, let me tell you the secret of life. It's exactly the opposite. You have to give. You have to provide. Because life is all about what's going on. Oh, Amber alert. Okay. I heard you. So when it comes to life, the Torah wants to tell us that what is the real secret, what is the real success of life, is that by giving, you actually take much more to yourself. The children provide for you nachas and a legacy, and what you give away is being used for the right purposes. So, but you thought you gave up, you really took to yourself. As my grandmother used to say always, in Yiddish, my Baba Liba used to say, was mi git, das atmen. What you give is what you got. They say a famous story about Abarbanel. Abarbanel, which we have one of his great commentaries on the Torah, was also the treasurer, the treasurer of ministry in Spain. Don Yitzchak, that was his name. Don Yitzchak Abarbanel. And once his enemies were so-called informing and telling about him to the king that he is keeping money into his pocket and is not honest with his recordings. There was obviously the jealousy that the Jew made it into such a high position of being the head of finances of Spain. And the king somehow accepted the Lashon Hara, the slander about Abarbanel, and he asked them to please provide him with proper financial records of all which he owns. Make him a proper printout of his financial statement. No, Abarbanel goes into his cabinet, to his office. He comes back after a half hour with a very small list, which basically says that he owns nothing more than $500,000. And the king looks at him and he says, you see, they are right. You are lying to me. I mean, I know what I gave you. I know what kind of gifts I provided you. Gardens and a beautiful home, which is already worth it more than $500,000 or more than $1 million. How dare you come and bring me this little modest list of $500,000? This is all your assets. You're a liar. And they were right. You admit to the fact that you are a liar. Abarbanel says, I am truly not lying to you, my friend, my king. I don't lie to you. You asked me to provide you with a statement on what is what I own. What do I really possess? This is the list of the money I gave away to support and to help others. This is that which I for sure own. Why? Because I don't have it anymore. I gave it. People made themselves a life with it. Some people started businesses. Some organizations were able to develop and to build. So this is for sure what I have. My house, my garden, my field, my car. I don't consider it possession because I don't know if it's mine. Today I have it, tomorrow who knows. One thing is always something which is going to be kept and never been taken from me is that which I gave away. So therefore, I provided you with the modest list of what I gave. What is that Barbanel saying? He says exactly what the first word of this parsha is. God tells Moshe, tell the Jewish children, tell the Jewish people that I want them to give, but they should realize and teach them. This is just a word of code, ve'ikhu, take. But there is a profound lesson. Moshe had to develop it. Moshe had to so-called verbring with them. He had to engage in conversation and probably even use a lot of his own words. And Aaron and so on, and the teachers who were around to tell and share with them that they should know that this is, God is introducing over here a very profound concept in the idea of giving and taking. Don't look at it that what you give is what you had and now you don't have, and what you take is what you don't have and now you have. The opposite. What you give is what you have, and what you have is not necessarily you have. We should all have and have and have, but not necessarily you have. They say a joke. It's not such a joke, but a joke is always good. That once it was the so-called the macher or the wealthy individual of the shtetl who was involved in a major building project, came to visit the site of the construction site where the building is being constructed. And unfortunately, it was the middle of construction, and there is some pits and holes, and the Gevir, the big wealthy guy, fell into one of the pits, Nebuch. And now the workers, everybody is running to the pit, and they say, come on, come out. Give us your hand. We can still hold you. We're going to take you out. Sie geht nicht. It doesn't go. Come on, give us your hand. We're going to take you out. He doesn't move. The family came running. Come on, give us your hand. We can still hold you. Let us take you out. Nothing. He's not moving. And he's stuck, and it's getting dangerous from moment to moment. They turned to the rabbi, and the rabbi came running from his office. He heard that the Gevir, the rich man of the shtetl, is now stuck in the pit. And he comes in, and he says a few words, whispers a few words. And lo and behold, the man takes out his hand. The rabbi picks him up, takes him out. And everybody's saying, wow, miracle rabbi, look what he did. But no one was able to do. He achieved, in maybe who said, he probably whispered some Kabbalistic passages, and he got this the man out of the pit. The rabbi said, no, nothing miraculous, nothing surprising. I know this person. He is rich as Koirach, but cheap like who knows what. This person never suffers from a very terrible illness. He's very, very cheap, even on himself. When you told him, give us your hand, he couldn't do it. I'm going to give. I'm not giving anything. When I came to the pit, you know what I told him? Maishaleh, take my hand, please. Take my hand. He heard, take? Sure. He took my hand and I pulled him out. That's it. It's a difference between give and take. So the Pasha starts up and God says, have them take a Truma for themselves. It means teach them how the giving should be. They should understand that really this giving involves a tremendous amount of taking. There is actually a statement in the Talmud. The Talmud says that more than what the rich person does to the poor gives to the rich. What does it mean? What is the poor giving the rich? Gurnish. The rich gave him $100. And what is the poor giving the rich? Especially, does he give him more? Why more? Maybe he gives them back the same. What is more? And in Hasidus, there is an explanation. More on a spiritual level. That the rich person obviously deserves a big thank you for making the choice of giving away $100 which he or she owns to somebody in need. True. So they gave up $100. The recipient, the poor person, gave the rich person the opportunity to do a mitzvah, the mitzvah of tzedakah. So now if you evaluate $100 against a mitzvah, who gave more? If you gave me $100 and I gave you the chance to do a mitzvah, I gave you more than you gave me. You only gave me $100. I gave you something which is unlimited in value, an opportunity to do a mitzvah. But this is usually, like I said, this is the so-called the traditional explanation. There's other commentaries which talks about the fact that the Torah is actually referring over here to the collectors. Ve'ikhu li Truma, not Moshe. If Moshe would come, it would be very difficult for people to say no. Moshe, he just took them out of Egypt. So God tells Moshe, appoint individuals which they are going to serve as fundraisers, and they shall take the Truma from the people. That's why it says Ve'ikhu, they shall take. The people are the ones who give, but they are the ones who are taking it. This is another group of commentators which go with this approach. And it's in Rashi, it seems that Rashi also understands that in that way. Rashi says that the people who take it should take it with 100% lishma. Lishma means they can only take it if they want to do it for the sake of the mitzvah, not to involve any personal agendas. When it comes to giving tzedakah, you're allowed to have a personal agenda. Why? Because when it comes to tzedakah, the most important part is, does the poor person have what to eat or he doesn't have what to eat? Who cares if you in your mind, you're building a whole, fantasy of what you do or what you didn't do. Yeah, a person is drowning in the water and I can save him. I'm going to start thinking what goes through in the mind of the person saving him. What does he think? Is he looking on himself as a savior? Is he looking on himself as a father figure? Who cares what he looks on himself? I need to protect a life. So what do I care what his agenda is? Matter of fact, there's a statement in the Talmud that if somebody went on the street and he actually happened to be lost a bill of money, fell out his pocket. You don't have any agenda. You don't even know that you lost money. And somebody walks by, a person is hungry and sees a $5 bill, picks it up. There is no identifying sign, so no one can say it's his. Who's going to claim it's his? So you're allowed to take it for yourself. You take the $5 and he's running to the store and buy himself a loaf of bread. Says the Gemara, the person who lost the money fulfilled the mitzvah of tzedakah. Why? Because tzedakah is not about your consciousness. Tzedakah is about what did the receiver get in order to support himself. But when it comes to taking money from somebody, Rashi says in this week's Parsha that the people who are encouraging others to give tzedakah, you have to have a pure intention in your mind. Why do you want to see the other person giving up some of his money? You can't do it with agendas. Sometimes someone comes to someone, you have so much money. I can tell you a crazy story. I'm not going to obviously give you the details and the names, but something which happened in the last couple of weeks. I was dealing with a crazy situation. Somebody who ended up a visitor in someone's house for a couple of weeks and ended up to be a month or two. And at the end, that person did not want to leave the house. And today, it's protected also by the covered declaration of the government. And it became a very, very difficult situation. And I was asked to come in and see if I can resolve it peacefully. It became very difficult. I came, I spoke to the person, trying to find a way to resolve it. And that person, instead of responding about the situation, or maybe saying, I have nowhere to go, or whatever, tried to ask or explain, give a reason why. The only argument was, that family has so much money, and why should they feel that they can throw me out of this house? It's a very difficult, by the way, I don't want to say anything bad, but I'm speaking to my friends, community. We got to be careful. Yes, we all have the open door policy, and we should always welcome guests. But you want to be protected. After what I went through the last few weeks, believe me, you want to be protected. You got to figure it out to do it right. What I'm saying is, what kind of calculation is it? You are demanding to stay in someone's house. Basically, you're trying to get someone's tzedakah because you in your mind figured out that they have maybe too much. So you have an agenda. You are not coming and asking it for the sake of tzedakah, for the need of for someone in need. You have an issue or something in your imaginary mind. You think that, based on new calculations, they should keep you in the house. Who are you? What do you think it is? You want to talk about charity? Sit down with them, make a presentation, talk about help, talk about compassion, talk about kindness, talk about need. What are you, going in? I'm going to walk into a store and I'm going to say, according to my calculation, that storekeeper made already enough money. And therefore, he doesn't deserve me to pay for the goods. I'm going to take it. Why? Because he has enough. That's called gneva. That's called stealing in the Torah. You can't make such calculations. So therefore, Rashi says that God is actually speaking to the collectors. V'yikchu li Truma. You're coming to build me a house. I don't want you to go into people's houses trying to schmeck around what's in their packet and what they have, what they don't have, and try to figure out their financial statement and tell them, you have enough. You don't have to keep so much. That's wrong. You have to go and be convinced that you are raising money for the right purpose. And if you are able to submit that same message, communicate that same message to the person who you're asking him to help, good. If not, is nicht. never to take it personal. Ve'yikhuli Truma. That's why it says ve'yikhuli to the collectors. And it says li to me. Says Rashi, you can only take it from them if your intention is that you are taking it for the sake of building a home for God. No personal agendas. No, the fundraisers must be on a level to take away and to remove themselves, to detach themselves from all kinds of personal jealousy or envy or coveting or who knows what. So not everybody was a fundraiser. There were very, very few individuals who were picked to work on their specific task. And in the Talmud, in Tractate of Basra, the Talmud speaks with very, very high, very special words and praises of those who were appointed to fundraise funds for a community and the trust that they have. But I want to take you, I see that the clock is moving, I want to take you to another look on this whole subject of the ikhu, taking versus giving. Obviously, the way the Rebbe sees it, and the way the Rebbe explains it in a few of his talks. Our first question tonight, when we started our class, was, what does it mean God is asking for donations? Remember that question, right? The ikhu Truma, that great God who created the world and the universe and responsible for everything. What does that mean that he has to say, give something? After all, this is a house for God, right? And that same God, which as the verse describes him, there's a pasuk, there's a verse in Tanakh that God says, Li kesef ve'li zahav neum Hashem tzvakot. Silver is all mine, gold is all mine, says the God, the Lord of hosts, right? That's what the pasuk says. Li kesef. And he comes and he's asking for support of the people. Wouldn't it be nicer to have a house coming down straight from heaven, a beautiful, majestic home? You know, I can't even imagine the beauty. I mean, there is infinite beauty, and God is infinite. So he could come down with a house that no one would even ever imagine. The look, the value, the silver, the gold. A house of dreams. Even a house of dreams cannot come up with this type of houses because we can't even dream about it. This is godly, coming straight from heaven. And it could have happened. The manna came down, food every day. Everything is possible. Comes for a little house, suddenly is hopeless. I need you. We have to give up a few dollars to go and make him a house. So the Rebbe says, if you look in the Chumash, he says as follows, that really it's not about the silver, it's not about the gold, rather there's a whole different talk over here. The code word is considered the idea of a chuppah. What's a chuppah? You know what a chuppah is? Chuppah is the canopy representing the union, the marriage from a groom and a bride, chas and kal. What happens when a couple gets married? There are two individuals, and now they are partnering and joining into a union, being pronounced as husband and wife, right? That's what happens at a chuppah. That's what happens at a wedding. What takes place in what establishes that union, says the Rebbe, is not that one is giving and one is receiving. Each one, with their own individual value, contributes their part into that union. The man gives the best of himself, and the woman gives the best of herself, and together they build a house. If a house would have been built just by one side person, a one-sided house, that I am doing everything and my wife is doing nothing, or my wife is doing everything and the man is doing nothing, this is a recipe for disaster. And it's not a union, it's not a house, it's not a marriage. Each one contributes. One finds the house, the other brings in the dishes, one brings in the towels, the other person brings in the table. Everybody does something in order to together establish that home. Till this moment of this parsha, from the moment we left Egypt, it's one side story. God is the one who gives. He takes us out, he splits the sea, he provides us with manna, he reveals himself at Sinai, he gives us the Torah. It's all about him. And what are we doing? Garnished. Passive recipients of his revelations. He's the giver, he's the provider. This parsha comes with a revolutionary concept which was not presented to us till this moment. God says, I want to create a union with you. I want to have a marriage relationship. I want to have a partnership with you. I am going to come and you are going to give. I am going to help you, to give you the strength to provide in order to give. And I'm going to come and provide you with the holiness, with the sanctity, with the revelation, whatever took place in that Mishkan. But there is no more I am coming down and kind of exposing myself on you, and that's it. This whole story of the Mishkan is really a home, like a home of a union, two people, husband and wife, usually building it together. And that's why he's asking for donations. He doesn't need our donations. Obviously, he could have do it all on himself, by himself, not needing any of our support, and it would have probably looked nicer and better than expected. But it's now introducing a new idea, a new stage in the development of the Jewish people. You're not just my inhabitants. You're not just my subjects. I am interested in a relationship with you. I am interested in a relationship. What's a relationship? In a relationship, there is a give and there is a take. Not just take and not just give. Each one is a giver and each one is a receiver. In some areas you give, in other areas you take. And same thing as the other person. That which forms a union. That is what we call a healthy home. A healthy home. Comes God and he says, and actually in the Medrash, I'm looking in the Medrash says that something interesting. This Parsha really should have been written 2 weeks from now. This is not written in the chronological order. Because as the Medrash says, this Parsha came after the scene of the golden calf. So basically, last week, 2 weeks ago, God gave us the Torah, right? Moses came up to the mountain and he came down. 40 days later, he broke the tablets. God is very angry. Moshe is pleading on our behalf, and God finally on Yom Kippur, 120 days later, says, I forgive you. Right? Salachti kidvarecha. I forgive you. I forgive them. At that point, which this story is only being discussed 2 weeks from now in Parshat Kitisa, right after that is when God tells Moshe, the Parsha of this week, make me a sanctuary. This is a famous classic approach in the Torah that the Parshiyot are not necessarily written in their chronological order, rather in the order of importance. So this Parsha comes really after the tragedy of the golden calf. So imagine now, we had messed up so badly after the golden calf, and God is ready to forgive us. What is the biggest expression of forgiveness? Sometimes you say, I forgive, but I don't forget, right? That's how people always say. God says, no, I forgive and I forget because I make you now a partner of mine. You are going to build me a home. And actually, as the Medrash says, the words which is being used in the verse is not that I'm going to dwell in it. Look on the verse 9. It doesn't say, Ve'asuli migdash ve'shachanti betocho, and I will dwell in it. Rather, what does it say? Ve'shachanti betocham. I'm going to dwell in them. What is them? Betoch kol echad ve'echad. In each one of them. This is going to be the place I'm dwelling. And how did we respond to that request? In a couple of weeks, you're going to come to Pashas Vayakel, Pashas Pkudei, and you're going to read, you're going to see there was an overwhelming outpour of giving. Like I always say, the miracle, which never happened, repeat itself ever again, was that Moses had to say, please stop giving. We have enough. The bank says that you are overloaded. There is no place to keep it. That miracle actually happened. Wait 3 weeks, we're going to find it in the Parasha Vayakel. How did it happen? What was the magic? The magic is simple, because that was a response to God's statement about our forgiveness. And it was an invitation to build a house together with them. So this was not just a fundraising, begging, snoring kind of request. God says, please, does he need us? He doesn't need you at all. He wanted us to be a part with him. And that's what the Torah says, you should take it. It's an opportunity that you take. You don't just give. You give me gold, you give me silver, and you take for yourself the opportunity to be a partner with me in this special home that I will consider my home, my mikdash, my sanctuary. And everything else which came before is really didn't last. Didn't last. Does anybody know where Sinai is? Not necessarily. Even those who know are not sure if it's really Sinai. And even if you know where Sinai is, it's for sure not holy. Why not? Because it was sided. It was one-sided. It only came from God. We were not there. We were present there, but we weren't involved in it. God kind of exposed himself on us. We had no choice. The Mishkan is till today. Till today. Whether it's your home that you make a sanctuary for God, whether it's the shul who's a sanctuary for God, or the ultimately home in Jerusalem that till today is being kept, and we always pray for its return, and we always direct our face and mind towards it, because we all looking and we are interested in that partnership. It was a whole different reality, which we never had experienced before the story, before this mitzvah came about. When you look at it this way, it's also interesting that you're going to find, if you think about it this way, you're going to find tremendous pleasure in studying about the Beis HaMikdash. There are people who look at it as a, something out of our reality, abstract. Temple, the vision of the temple. 2,000 years we have no temple. Mashiach is going to come. No, he's going to come. Shalom Aleichem. Very nice. But then you have people who always express interest in the temple. The Lubavitcher Rebbe was one of those. He actually inspired many to study about the temple, about his character, about his design, about his architectural, structure. Why is it so important to study about it? Because this is not something of the past. It's not only something of the future. It is something which marks our relationship with God. There was the time that we were welcome to a partnership of a give and take. God gives, but we give too, and He's ready to take it from us. So when you learn that this is what the partnership is, you want to find out more about it. How did it look? What did it serve? What was its magnificent? What was its purpose? Give me more. Give me more. I would like to find out more about it. And you study the book of Ezekiel about the future temple. You study the Rambam. You want to learn about it. Because really, as we said, this is the opportunity of this parsha. And as the Rambam says, when it came to build the Beis HaMikdash, everybody was involved. Men, women, even children, in their way, everybody joined in a partnership of this Beis HaMikdash. Obviously, we hope and pray that this home should be rebuilt. And as the Rambam says, that's going to be the first activity when Mashiach is going to be a reality, that is going to build the Beis HaMikdash at its spot where it was standing always. Even before all Jews arrived there. That's what the Rambam says. That's the order. So let's hope we're going to see it speedily in our day. But meantime, first of all, we have our shuls, which are called miniature sanctuaries. This is not a word made up by the rabbis or by the community leaders. This is a word comes directly from Tanakh. In the book of Ezekiel, Ve'yahi lahem lemikdash me'at. I will be for you in exile in your miniature sanctuaries, which are the synagogue. Which obviously very soon we're all going to be back in our synagogues in the way it was, and even better. But not only the synagogues. The Rebbe spoke very strongly, many, many times, that every house can and should be a sanctuary for God. You take a room, you take a spot in your house, and you dedicate it as a sanctuary. You put a cedar, you put a chumash, you put a tanya, you put a charity box, and you say, this is the Beis HaMikdash part. This is the little sanctuary part. Especially now, during this time of Corona, that we are spending so much time at home. Where do you daven at home? Where do you learn at home? Which room is it? So if you have a house with kids, so it depends, wherever there is less noise, that's where you daven. So sometimes it's in this room, sometimes it's in the other room, sometimes it's on the attic, sometimes it's in the basement. You keep on escaping because you're looking for some tranquility. But it shouldn't be this way. We should have a designated place, a designated corner, a designated room. This is my little shul. This is where I daven. This is what I learn. Yes, I'm going to do it everywhere, but at the same time, there will be a place that I'm going in there. I'm like going to shul. Imagine going to shul in your house. Yes, and now I'm leaving my kitchen. I'm leaving my bedroom. I'm going to the place which I designated as shul. There is a cedar. There is a chumash. There is a medrash. There is a tzedakah box. There is a bottle of l'chaim, right? Obviously. And that's my little shul. That's my little shtibel. That's how you bring in God in your house. And this is how God takes you in to the partnership with Him. So again, I see as it's getting late, I just want to make one announcement. And first of all, that next week, Wednesday, is going to be the night before Purim. So we are going to have a special pre-Purim class. And regarding Purim itself, we are going to only have Megillah reading. Unfortunately, we're still not ready for a party, but we are going to have a Megillah reading at the Torah Center. We're going to open up all the walls so people can participate in with social distance. Make sure you come. Purim, you're anyway masked, so come with a double, come with a mask, so we can be there organized in listening to the Megillah. Those who can't come yet to shul, so you can listen to the story of Megillah, but you're not going to fulfill your obligation by listening it on Zoom. Many people ask me. You heard the stories, at least you have the story and the concept, and read the Megillah for yourself is more importantly, make sure you have it, and you can also read it online. It's not a Shabbos, it's not a Yom Tov. And we're going to continue discussing Purim and the great opportunities of Purim by next Wednesday class. And with this, we're going to finish up tonight's class, wishing everybody a good night and a happy Mud. And again, a big mazel tov to Izana Kutapov for the birth of your baby boy. We should only have nachas and simchas by everybody. Thank you and Laila Tov.
Laila Tov.
Open up your computers. Zaku Baruch.
Thank you, Rabbi.